Hello, it's Dawn Michelle and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to chat about all the stuff I got up to in May of 2024. So we'll take a quick flip through my planner, which also happens to be my tarot journal, and then we'll talk about all of the decks that I worked with throughout the month. So we're going to jump into my planner first because, as per usual, that is how I remember what I actually did in any given month. I'm currently working in a Hobonichi Cousins and I have it in a Moturn cover. So starting with the last few days of April and then going into May, this is kind of how my planner has been coming together over the last few months. I've been using a color-coded system to correspond to my Gamify, which we'll take a quick peek through here in a moment. And then basically I just use this to kind of catalog, record, and also plan anything that I need to do throughout a week. And then I use fun little stickers and photos and things like that to do a little bit of memory keeping in here as well. So every time we've got like a game stream, if Kevin and I watch a movie or a show, if I make a fun little edit, this was my youngest's art piece that was in a show. We went to the one motorcycle show here, and it's just a fun way for me to not only keep track of what I have to do, the color coding also lets me know where I spend a lot of my time, but then I can also just kind of keep some memories here and there, noting some of the books I'm reading and things of that nature. So going into this first full week of May, I had some work that I was doing, but then Kevin and I went on a little vacation, a little getaway for a couple of days for really my birthday, which was the week after, but also kind of like a Mother's Day, just getting away. And then moving into the next week, so the 13th was actually my birthday. I had a fun chat with Christine Roselle on that day, so that was fun. I got this beautiful image from Lisa for my birthday. So this is our characters from our Wildflower stream, and she had these commissioned from Francesca, who you may know illustrated Lisa's unicorn decks, and she did this beautiful little illustration. This is my character Daphne and Lisa's character Alex. So much fun to play. If you want to catch that adventure, we are live streaming that on Twitch on Tuesday evenings. Well, Tuesday are evenings. And so that was really fun to kind of get to spend my birthday. Like, I spent the weekend with Kevin, and then I got to spend my birthday day chatting with some friends, and then Lisa and I played our game, and it was fantastic. Great little way to spend my birthday. And we started a new run. It's actually a tactician run, so it's a harder gameplay mode. But to make it fun, we turned all the characters into the Breakfast Club. So I'm playing Camilla, Cammy as we call her, who's the basket case. She's very much like a little gothy girl. And then Lisa is playing Jessie, who is kind of like our punk figure. And we modded 3 of the companions to fit with some of the other characters within that movie. And I've done a few little videos of it over on my gaming channel. It's just good fun. I did take a little bit of time off of work through kind of the mid part of May, mostly because I was also finishing up some edits for my Llewellyn book. And so I wasn't doing a lot in terms of like creating tarot content because I was focused in on that. But then to kind of counterbalance that, I was doing a lot of gaming stuff as well. Kevin and I finished Andor, which was great. And then we started Expedition 33, which is a new game that just came out, I don't think all that terribly long ago. It's an indie game. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. It's very story-based, kind of similar to Baldur's Gate in that way, but the combat is actually like Final Fantasy combat. So if you're familiar with all of that, it's a great little kind of hybrid of those. It's a beautifully done game. There's a lot of voice actors from Baldur's Gate in it as well, which is always fun. Finally been able to get back to running, which has been really good. It's been a slow roll. I hurt my back last year and it was a very long, slow process to recover from that. And so I've finally gotten to the point where I can get back to running. So I've started doing that again. And then moving into this last week of May, again, you can see just some of the things that I had going on. Also, like, I got myself a grumpy bear. Look at this little dude. I love him. This is Grumpy Bear as Frankenstein's monster, and he's amazing. There's a whole series of these. I might need them all, but he's absolutely my favorite. I never know how to do this. Do we go into the tarot journal? Do we talk about my Gamify? Let's do Gamify really quickly, and I'm just going to kind of throw it over the top here. I do have full videos on this whole process. All of these color codings relate to the 5 categories that I'm doing in Gamify, which for me are vitality, insight, charisma, wisdom, and dexterity. These relate to different areas of my life. Again, I've done full videos on it. I'll link those below if you want to find out more. But this is kind of just what I'm doing to help me track my progress, where I spend my time, and to help me kind of keep moving forward in terms of what I want to be doing and progressing with my life. So here's May, and I just kind of catalog, again, all the dots correlate to what's in my planner, so the colors match up fairly well. I catalog my points, and then every Monday I do a reading. So it's a review of the week prior, but also a look at the week ahead. I have to earn the cards from these readings, so that's always an important thing for me to keep in mind. I often do dice casting with it. The actual picture of the reading and sort of my reflections are in my tarot journal or in the daily pages of my Hobonichi cousins. So I just kind of record the readings in here just so that I have them as well. But this is mostly about keeping track of my point system and, you know, how far I am and how much I'm progressing in the things that I'm doing. I do have weeks where I'm like, oh man, like, do I have time to do this? But I really want to follow this through for an entire year because I'd really love to see if anything comes of that, if I learn anything from it, if I feel like it's helped me make any sort of progress. And so I'm really focused on trying to make sure that this does stay a priority so that I continue to do it through an entire year. Because that's just a goal I set for myself this year, and I just really want to follow through on that. So since we're here, let's go ahead and take a look at my daily pages, which has basically become my tarot journal, but also sort of a journal sometimes. And then we'll take a look at the decks that I work with. So I've been using the sort of blank monthly pages that are in the daily section of this planner as a way to catalog the decks that I've been working with, because as the year has progressed, and I think I talked about this in a video when I kind of reviewed this whole thing after the first quarter, I started using the daily pages more as for journaling and a tarot journal. I do really like having my planner and my journal and my tarot stuff. Like, I do really like having everything all in one book. But I will be honest, there are days when I do feel pressure to fill in the page. So I'm kind of working on balancing those two energies right now. So here's the list of all the decks that I use. We'll talk about the majority of these here in a moment. But I have my Gamify decks, my Wisdom decks, Wild Magic decks, and then just other random decks that I use for other things. I like to make this little cover page for it. So coming into the daily pages for May, so I started May with a big reading with the Endless Tarot, Endless Oracle, and the True Sight Oracle. I really, really love these decks. You'll see them a lot. Then I also kind of did some random readings here and there. So this one I actually used my beautiful creatures, my Disney villains, and this is the Blessings and a Curse. I've talked about this reading before that I do. It's a Blessing and a Curse reading. I think I might have a video on it. Occasionally I do that just to kind of check in with things, to make sure that I'm really like looking at, like, sometimes things are rough, but like there's always the blessing in that, right? And so I'm just kind of doing that as a way to check in every once in a while. Here's another reading that I did. I think this one is a Morgan reading. So I was using my Morgan Oracle and using the Endless Tarot, Endless Oracle with that. Wild Magic is kind of like my self-care reading. There is a list of 100 prompts in my Gamify. That's a free list. It's available on that video, which I'll leave link below if you want to grab the PDF. It's just a list of 100 things. You can roll a D100 dice and get a prompt or several prompts if you want. I usually just do one prompt, one question. So for this one, I rolled a 71. So my question was, what about my growth work needs to come to light? And then I pull my 3 cards around that. I almost always do 3-card readings around that. So that's kind of like my self-care Sunday reading, but it's just using those prompts, using what I call my Wild Magic. So Mondays this year are always my Gamify reading days. So I've been using a new set of decks for Gamify in May. I will continue to use these also through June. About 2 months is about my time frame for those. It's nothing against the decks. I just get like bored and I want to use something else, and that's nothing against the deck. It's just the way my brain works. Tuesday I did a journaling day. Wednesday here on the 7th I did a Morgan reading. Sometimes I use dice with those, sometimes not. I do use a lot of stickers and washi and things like that in my journaling. So this was just another reading I did, again, using those same decks, the Endless Tarot collection. I got Total Party Kill, which is amazing. It kind of cracks me up whenever that card comes up for me. It's kind of just, it's a little bit of a giggle thing because in several of our games, we TPK a lot. One game in particular, Allie and I TPK all the time. But it's just really funny when that comes up in context of a reading. I actually pulled it. I was doing this thing with Tara over at Cozy Core, and doing this writing card for an energy for writing for the month for June, and I pulled the total party kill card, so that was pretty funny. This is just a little page I did on, our vacation time. So we were on vacation Friday, put some pictures in. That's Pascal. Frisbee is life for him. We call this his emotional support Frisbee because whenever he gets a little bit stressed out, if we give him his Frisbee, like he's better. He calms down. He is a rescue, so he does have some issues. This deer was just hanging out, so I took a picture of it. A little bit of journaling on our little vacation that we had. And then back to kind of real life on Monday with another Gamify reading. Then I had another reading that I did here for my birthday. So for this one, I used the Dreaming Way, the True Sight Oracle, and the Old Ways Magic Oracle. I really love these cards together. It was a really amazing reading. And then moving into Wednesday, I just pulled a card and did a dice roll for the Morgan. I've been liking to check in with her at least once or twice a week. Did some journaling on Thursday. I needed to take some time off. So if you are a Stargate fan, you will recognize the quote of "I'm taking this loop off." That is where it comes from, even though I decorated it with like these little gothic things, but that was actually what was in my brain. I was taking this loop off, which basically just meant I was taking this loop off from like journaling and work and stuff like that. I was doing some other things. As I mentioned, I was focusing on trying to finish up my book for Llewellyn, and then, taking a little bit of a break from content and focusing on just some other things to kind of just reset my energy and things like that. So Wild Magic on Sunday, and then back to Gamify on Monday. You can see I very much have a flow, but also I wasn't doing a ton this particular week. I think this week I had really decided I was taking it off from content, and I was focusing on other things just to give my brain a break from tarot stuff. So this is Shadow and Ruins is my fan fiction that I'm writing, and I also make these little like comic style graphics for it. I have a game. I legit have a game that is based around these characters, and I just go into the game and grab some photos from photo mode or screenshots or whatever, and I make little comic strips out of them type of thing. This was one of the days that I spent doing some of the stuff on Sun King, so that's another series that I'm working on. Some journaling on Thursday. Another little just reading that I did, just kind of checking in on Friday here. Again, still using a lot of the same decks. A wisdom reading, so checking in with the Morgan on Saturday, and then my Wild Magic reading on Sunday, which I forgot to write Wild Magic on this one. Gamify reading on Monday. This week was really fun in terms of tarot this last week. I really enjoyed the pages that I created in my planner, but also because I wasn't actively making content this last week in terms of tarot, I was doing a lot of actual tarot readings. So I decided to take one of the oracle decks that was new to me in my collection, the Black Salt Oracle, which I'll talk about here in a moment, and I decided to throw it at several of the decks that I'm working with this month or that I'm using for Gamify. So I did kind of like a self check-in here using the Black Salt and the Black Lily tarots. This is kind of like what do I need to know, like my inner self needs to know. And then I did it here again. This reading, actually, I originally started with the idea of like, what do I need to know, like in terms of like gaming and things like that. And it did go a little bit into the personal realm as well, but I wanted to kind of check in with how like that side of my work life or my play life, really, because I was definitely more play, how that part of my play life kind of integrates into my everyday life. Then I had another reading that I did again using the Black Salt, and this one was a check-in with like my work related stuff. So it was just really cool to use that deck in multiple ways. Then on Friday I did a big like light and shadow reading with kind of like my standard light and shadow decks. That's always a great one. And then here on the last day of May, I did another Morgan reading, and this was a beautiful one. I really enjoyed it. So that's how my month has been going. Sometimes I am tarot journaling, sometimes I'm journaling. I do love having these daily pages to just do whatever I want in. However, I will admit to occasionally I feel pressure to make sure that I get something in every page because I have something on every page so far. So like that whole completionist part of me, like the person who will go in a game and like complete every quest, every reward, because I'm such a completionist in that way. I want every page to be filled out. So it is, when I do start to feel that pressure, sometimes I journal about that in here. So it's handy that I can use it in that way. But there are occasional times where I'm like, oh, I don't have anything. I need to fill something out. So I'm just being mindful of that for myself. All right, so let's move on and talk about all of the decks that I worked with. Okay, so real quick, I'm just going to mention these decks that sit out in my tray because this is my little Morgan set of decks and dice and charms and all the things. I have the Call of the Morgan here and the Endless Tarot prototype here. I'm not going to show these again because I talked about them quite a bit last month, but I just wanted to note that I am still actively working with them. You probably saw them in my tarot journal. I'm really loving these decks together, and I'm definitely still fully ingrained in learning more about the Morgan and working with her energy. It's been really fantastic. I am also using the Call of the Morgan in my Gamify, so let's go ahead and talk about the other decks that I'm using in Gamify. So the other decks that I've been working with in my Gamify, along with the Call of the Morgan, is this Old Ways Magic Oracle. Now this is by the same illustrator as the Call of the Morgan, so they're very compatible together. This does have a lovely little guidebook. I don't keep mine in the box, although technically it would fit in there. I really love this artist's art style. One of the reasons that I was drawn to the Call of the Morgan deck in the first place was the art style. It wasn't so much a call to work with the Morgan as it was I just was completely enamored with the art. And it turns out that was sort of my gateway into the work with the Morgan. But then some of my members let me know that this artist also has this Oracle deck out. This one is indie. The Call of the Morgan is mass market. Again, links below for all the things. And I really enjoyed this one because while there is definitely some Morgan influence to it, it has a more sort of broader spiritual feel to it. So I feel like it slots in a lot of different places. I've used it in a couple of different readings in a couple of different situations. So while it is serving as my wisdom deck in my Gamify reading, I've used it for a lot of other things too. I really like the succinct keywords. The art is just absolutely phenomenal. Again, it's the thing that drew me to this creator, to these decks, was the art itself. I think it's really beautiful. There's just something very emotionally stirring about these decks. I feel like they really key into something that resonates with my practice and the way that I kind of view life and the world and how I want to exist in it. I've been really enjoying getting to know this one. It's been beautiful. I'm just gonna quickly finish flipping through it while we're talking about it here. Again, it's been a wonderful one for really creating a very broad, succinct, but also very spiritually nourishing focal point in my readings. And I've used it quite a bit for that. I do get into the little guidebook pretty much every time I pull one of these cards out, just because I feel like it does add a beautiful layer to it. You know, I'm always, singing that same old broken record song about I don't want to be beholden to the guidebook, but I like when it's a good one and it's there and handy for me to use. It's very short little entries, which I actually appreciate. As much as the really long, lengthy Alana Fairchild style guidebooks are beautiful, this is actually way more usable for me in the moment. We just have a little bit about the card, and then we have a welcome, a warning, and a wisdom. I think this is an amazing setup for an Oracle deck, and I really like working with it because it makes it so much more approachable and accessible, and I don't feel like I'm slogging through pages and pages of writing in order just to find like what's the kind of takeaway, what's the message. And it really does a great job of that, and then I can dive even deeper into the beautiful art. So another deck that I've been working with, not only for my Gamify, my life readings, but also for just a ton of other readings, is the Black Salt Oracle. I think I did a little post on Instagram about this one because I feel like this might be one of my most versatile Oracle decks that I think I've come across in a long time. It's like the production quality on this deck is beautiful. We have some little foil in stamping. I don't know what that's called. I'm so sorry, Logan. I don't know the proper terms for it. Your deck is beautiful though. It's black edged, black matte cardstock. Like it's just, it's amazing. And with the little hollow foil thingy, whatever this is called, it's really interesting because it looks like to me, this looks pink and purple. On camera, it's looking like yellowy, but it's got the like rainbow thing. And the thing I've noticed is it kind of picks up the colors in the cards around it, which makes it really aesthetically versatile, which is amazing. This door knocker cracks me up. I love everything that's in this deck. It's just absolutely fantastic. The things and the symbols that this deck creator, Logan of Larkin Legend, has infused into this deck and used to create this oracle deck is so spot on and resonant for my life. There's a lot of things in here that there's some gamer things in here, which is amazing. I feel like there's some fairy tale type, there's some witchy type. It's like kind of all of the things rolled into one. You might have saw there was a charging cable, so there's also some modern influences in this deck. I love the pizza cutter in place of like the scissors or the knife or things like that. It's brilliant. And I think this is a really wonderful oracle deck. Probably underrated, because I feel like when I hear a few people talk about it now and then, I feel like it doesn't quite get the play that it should, because it's phenomenal, and I really, really have been enjoying working with it. This is one of those decks that I absolutely do not need the guidebook. Every time one of these cards hits the table, I'm like, yep, I know what that means to me on a personal level. And that is really because I read tarot for myself and not for others. That's really the only thing that matters. This card sold me on the deck. I'll just be honest. That's amazing. And so I really enjoy working with it in a very intuitive way like that. However, I do often get into the little guidebook just to see what's in there, because that's where I learned, like the pizza cutter was in place of scissors, like just little nuggets like that just enrich the work with the cards, not necessary to working with the deck, which is definitely what I appreciate. I don't want to have to be beholden to it. Like y'all know, I'm a broken record. But I love that when we have decks and guidebooks that really just kind of add a little bit to it if you choose to get into it, but it's not, required. So this is such a great little oracle deck, super versatile. I threw it at pretty much every deck that I used throughout the month, and it worked beautifully. Everything from the Endless Tarot to the other decks that I've got here on the table. So another deck that I worked with for my Gamify readings, which I think I worked with earlier this year as well, is my Lumina Tarot. So this is the mass market edition. I forgot to mention the Black Salt is indie. This is the mass market edition of what was an indie deck. And I'm pretty sure that I used this as my dexterity or my work-related deck at the beginning of the year, or close to the beginning of the year. I really love this deck. I think it's really smart. I love the aesthetics of it. It slots right into that space where there were some other decks that I wanted to be able to work with in that way. Nothing against those decks. They just didn't really work for me. This is, I think, a great mass market alternative to things like the Way Home Tarot or the Naked Heart, things like that. Those indie decks. Sometimes you just need a mass market alternative, and I think this is a great one for that. This deck, and I've had all of those decks that I just mentioned. This is the one that I've kept. This is the one that I was hunting for this indie, couldn't ever find it, for a price that I was willing to pay. Like, let's be honest, I could find it. I'm not paying that for an out-of-print deck. It's a stack of cards. Not happening. But when I heard it was going to come out mass market, I basically tracked this deck on Amazon until it became available and I was able to order it. This deck just really sits in that space for me, and it works beautifully. I would say it fits kind of in the wild unknown space a little bit, but this one feels a little bit more in alignment with people-y energy, I guess. There are some animals in here, but it's not as animal heavy as the wild unknown is. So I feel like it kind of sits in that similar space aesthetically, but this one feels a little bit more in alignment with like personal things for me. I actually use it for work. That's one of the main things that I use it for. It's kind of my darker half of the year work deck, I guess, which is kind of funny to say. I tend to black and white decks a lot, and this one has a lot of black and white, which is to pop a color. And then in the summer times, I kind of tend to get out my B tarot because that has a totally different vibe, but it's also a work deck for me. So this one worked great for my dexterity deck. I used it before. I really love it. I also did work readings. So anytime I, want to do a check-in with my work stuff or whatever, need to get some insider around that, I use this one a lot. And then I paired it with the Black Salt, and it was phenomenal. So the last deck that I've been using in my Gamify, as well as just for any time that I want to check in with like my inner self, this is the Black Lily Tarot. This is an indie deck, and I call this my inner truth teller. This deck is amazing. I really love the art in it. I love the kind of raw, primal, but also very feminine energy that comes through this deck. This deck to me, I feel like is my inner self. This is like the more raw, primal inner self that's allowed to speak. And I really enjoy working with it. It's such a great energy for that. I feel like it really kind of like gets at the heart of things, but like the raw, unbridled truth of the matter. And I really enjoy this one. It's one of my favorites. Definitely one that I have to be in the right headspace to work with, but when I am, it's a beautiful reader for that. And again, I paired it with the Black Salt and it was just amazing. And this one I used as my Vitality deck. So whereas previously in my Gamify was using Vitality as sort of like physical health and wellness, this time I went more to internal health and wellness focus for my Vitality stuff in my Gamify. This was a really great fit for that. So now let's talk about the decks that I used for my Sunday readings, my Wild Magic readings, and that's the Viola Lux Umbra. I really love this deck. I haven't had opportunity to use it. I bought it quite a while ago. I think it came out last year. I believe I backed the Kickstarter on this and everything. It is a matte cardstock with a beautiful matte gold finish. Really my preference for decks, although, well, linen, but definitely for gilding, the matte is the way to go. I really love this deck. I think that this deck, if you struggle with the decks by this creator, which I know a lot of people have, because there's a little bit of a, I was going to say an acquired taste, but more of an acquired reading style, not so much taste, because aesthetically it's beautiful, but it kind of has a little bit of a acquired reading style to work with it that I found. All these decks by this creator, they're tarots specifically. The oracles I think are a little bit more self-explanatory. This one I think is a little bit more in alignment with more traditional tarot meanings than the Ophidia Rosa is, which is their other main tarot deck. I do really love this one. I personally like the fact that it steps outside of tradition. It's really opens things up for me to be able to read very numerologically and elementally, and I really appreciate that. In fact, I think Tegan and I talked about the Ophidia Rosa in one of our Tarot Beyond Tradition videos, and I brought it out as an example as a non-traditional tarot deck because it kind of does go its own way in a lot of ways, and what you see on the card isn't necessarily always kind of what you get type of thing. I feel like there's layer and nuance in this deck that kind of, again, is kind of an acquired reading style to get to know it. Again, I do feel like this one is a bit easier than the Ophidia Rosa to maybe jump into. So if you're kind of torn between the two and you're a little bit unsure about working with a deck like this, maybe give this one a try first. Although I love them both. I've had the Ophidia Rosa twice because I did rehome my first one because I was like, it's beautiful, but I don't get it. Then I did a whole deep dive with it, and then it was a whole thing, and now I've got them all. And so the Craft Decadence Oracle, both of these are indie decks. This is one of my favorite little oracles. I absolutely love it. It's collage based, analog collage. It's a little poker sized deck. I have edged mine in black myself. But it has, and I say this every time I bring this deck out, but it has the most unique keywords on it. I love it because it really steps outside of traditional oracle messaging, and it's just got such a great fun energy to it that it really helps me to kind of like get outside my own comfort zone and really look at exploring things through different lenses. And I think this is a really great one for challenging kind of that typical oracle messaging that you get. I don't really mean that in a slightly like negative way, although it kind of sounds that way coming out of my mouth. But it does a really good job of creating a unique message, which I really enjoy. So I was rolling my D100, as I mentioned, we were flipping through my journals, rolling my D100 to get my prompt, and that's my main overarching question for the reading. But then I was using the oracle deck here as the focal point was the main keyword, and then I was attributing the two keywords underneath it to the cards on either side. So for selfishness, we have the Three of Cups, and for higher aim, we have the World. And I really enjoyed that process. It's one of my favorite ways to work with this deck. I think it works really well. Also, aesthetically, these together are beautiful. And I love that they're each kind of a little bit outside of the norm. They ask you to kind of look at things in a different way. And as far as like pairing decks for messaging, I think these two work together really well for that because we are looking at kind of stepping outside of the norm, stepping outside kind of our habitual reading style and looking at things a little bit different. Like here we have Divine Hacking with Ecstatic Stroke and Mystical Bloom. So Ecstatic Stroke with the Tower and Mystical Bloom with the Sun. I mean, how potent is that? Also just aesthetically, chef's kiss with these two. I really love it. I love that it does something different. I love that it gets outside of the norm. I love that it challenges me in the way that I read and the way that I work with cards. It's such a great combo. I don't know if I'm going to continue working with these two into June. I haven't 100% decided yet because I really do love them, but I do like being able to switch up my decks and, explore new things. So I might just go ahead and put these, on the shelf as just to pull back out from time to time. So let's wrap things up with the big selection of decks that I used for my library reading. So that is the guided tarot practice that I do here in the membership on my channel. In May, we went down the rabbit hole exploring themes that can be found in Alice in Wonderland. So I definitely was pulling out my Dame Darcy Queen Alice Tarot. I love this deck. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's my favorite Alice deck. I absolutely love Dame Darcy's art style. I love the way these cards read. In fact, my main library deck for June is another Dame Darcy deck because we are doing the Little Mermaid, not the Disney version, the original fairy tale version, which is much, much darker. But I'm actually using my Mermaid Tarot for that. But I love this deck creator's artwork. Again, similar to like I was talking about the artist of the Morgan decks or the Old Ways Magic, there's just something about this creator's art style that just really speaks to me on a personal level, and I really enjoy working with it. And I legit added Alice in Wonderland to the library practice specifically so I could use this deck specifically in May because it's my birthday month. Oh, sorry, a little bit of selfish reasoning there, but like that's legit just what happened. I really love working with this deck. I think it's amazing. I love the interpretation of Alice through this lens. I just get it. It just clicks for me. You know how you have those decks that just feel like they were made for you? This is definitely one of them. I have some other like books and stuff by this creator as well with their art, and it's amazing. I really, really enjoy it. So this was the main deck that I pulled out to work with in my library practice. And in May, I did a video where I was going through the decks that I was going to use for May and talking about, which decks I'm going to be using for different practices and things like that. That's also something I'm doing in my membership in June as well. So if you're interested, or if you're interested in checking out like all the decks that I buy, that's also in my member space. I do a coffee and cards every month where I share everything that I bought, from decks to gaming stuff to journaling stuff to whatever, whatever I've happened to buy. But when I was exploring this deck and I was like, I want to work with this one, and I was trying to figure out which decks I wanted to pair with it, what I ended up with was a whole selection of decks, which was kind of great. So I pulled the Witches of the Craft Oracle, mostly because I was like, well, aesthetically it's red and black and it would match. I wasn't expecting it to actually work as well as it did because it's very archetypal, but I used this as my main sort of like focus card for each week. So each week we have a focus card that we pull, and I use this deck for that, and then we do our readings and our enchantment dice stuff, things like that around it. It's a really fun practice, and it allows me to really dive into different aspects, different themes, and explore working with lots of different decks. This is one of those decks, like, it's design-wise, it's a hot mess, but I love it. I have this whole, like, this is a Pokemon thing. I've got all of these decks, and I do really enjoy the way they read, though. That's the thing. It's like, aesthetically, maybe it's not always a great hit for me, but the way that they read is spot on. And this one's very archetypal, so I wasn't sure it was going to work for the practice, but it worked really, really well. So then what I did was I was like, okay, I have these two, cool, set with that. But then I was like, but I really want to work with the Stunning Tarot too. So you know how that goes when you're like, oh, but I really want to work with this deck. How can I slot it into my practice? This is, well, the version. I have two different versions of the Stunning Tarot. I do not know which edition this one is. It just says medium. Oh, edition 4. And I have the first edition as well, but there's something about this long skinny that I just think is so cool. It's like, it's ridiculous to try and shuffle it. I really can't. But I love the look of it. I love the aesthetic of the deck, and I really love the way that it reads. And it works really beautifully mixed in here. So I kind of use this as like within the readings as the Queen Alice kind of represented that younger self in terms of the prompts, or like the past, or what I'm bringing forward. And then I use the Stunning Tarot as kind of like more of the present. So like the grown-up version of me, right? Or the version of me that pretends to be grown up. And I worked with those two together. Then I pulled the Hollow Valley deck of symbols into this as well. And I'll talk about what's mass market and what's indie here in a moment. Here's the backs of this. This is one of those decks that, like I've said it a million times, it shouldn't work for me because it's just a title, but the things that are on this deck actually make sense to me. And I don't need anything else, because this didn't come with a guidebook or anything. There might be a separate guidebook. I can't remember, but I don't feel like I need it, because every time I pull out one of these cards, I just get it. It's just like intuitively, I just get it. So I was using this one within this whole mix of decks as well. I'm running out of space here. And then because we were in Alice in Wonderland, I wanted to pull playing cards in this month as well. So I've got my Disney Bicycle Alice playing card set, and you know, here's the backs. This is just a really fun one. Like aesthetically, it works really well with everything. I love the little illustrations in it. This is mass market. The Witches of Craft is mass market, and the rest of these are all indie. So I pulled this usually along with the enchantment part of the practice. So that's where it's like there's an activity. So I was using this as the activity for any card pulls around that, and then dice casting and things of that nature. So like we'll just flip through a couple together so you can kind of see. I'm going to create a big mess on my table, but you can kind of see how these all go together. Not exactly a playing with pairs, like a playing with a bunch of cards together, but it's a beautiful little selection of decks, and I really enjoyed working with them together. These two actually worked really well. It was like younger self, current self type of a situation. I did actually enjoy that. It's not something that I've done in the library practice very often, but like I feel like they work really well together. Let's just take a look. Okay, so we have the Garden Witch with Flower Magic. Then we have the Four of Wands, Nine of Cups, the Three of Hearts, and Poison. I mean, how beautiful is all that together? I'm not going to flip through too many because like this is a lot of cards to be flipping through, but I really enjoyed the way they looked together. Also, I'm just making a huge mess of a pile of cards over here on the side of my table. So that'll be fun for me after I finish recording this video. But anyway, I really, really enjoyed these together. It was really fun to incorporate that. I did love having that little hint of the Alice in Wonderland through the Queen Alice tarot, and of course through the playing cards. But that practice really, it's just using those themes from that story to explore more personal growth, inner self stuff, kind of looking at our own life, our own growth process, shadow work, things of that nature. And so it doesn't necessarily like, it's not a one-for-one kind of like exploring Alice in Wonderland as a story. It's using the themes from the story in order to explore personal growth. So yeah, May was Alice in Wonderland, Down the Rabbit Hole. June is The Little Mermaid, and I'm very excited about that one too. Real quick, the dice set that I used, I really don't know where these came from because Kevin bought them for me, but they're kind of like a red, blue, gold. I think he originally bought them to be like Baldur's Gate dice for me to use in that, but actually they ended up working really well. I love the whole aesthetic of it with my library practice. I do like to match my dice with my decks. I feel like they do, after a while, get infused with the energy of whatever the intention is I put in them. Like my Morgan dice, I only use for Morgan. I have Hades dice, only use for Hades, that type of thing. And I feel like it does sort of infuse, kind of like the tarot cards do, with whatever energy and intention I assign to it. So real quick, I'm recording my library practice in this little Archer and Olive notebook. That is actually Traveler's notebook size, which is really fun. Every month, along with the PDF that I distribute that has all of the prompts and everything, the stories and whatnot for the month, I also am doing the sticker sheet now for everybody. So that gives them some stuff to play with. I've got some of the stickers here in mine. I have the story as we're encountering it. We always roll a d20 for an archetypal energy and pull some cards around that from our caretaker. So I've got that in here. My layout really doesn't change very much. I do a picture of my card pool. You can do these in 3 separate sort of sessions or sections if you want. We start the week with a overarching question and a card pull, which I usually use Oracle for. Then we have a tarot reading, and then we have the enchantment section, which is kind of like the activity. So sometimes it's dice, sometimes it's cards, sometimes it's both, and we just work through that whole process. And I'm just basically recording the same thing in here, and it's been really fun to watch this whole journal progress over the years. So I can't wait to see what it looks like when we're done with the Enchanted Library practice. So there we have it. That's a look at everything that I got up to in May. Some of my planning, journaling, and of course all of the decks that I worked with. As always, you'll find links for everything I can link to in the description box of this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I'd love to know how your month went, what you're doing. Definitely let me know in the comments below. In the meantime, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope that you had a wonderful May, and I wish you many blessings moving into June.